Hello there. Hello there.
At last, where have you been?
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Master Skywalker, there are too many of them. What are we going to do?
This is where the fun begins.
This is where the fun would begin if Andrew wouldn't stop ruining the podcast. No, this is Jedi Eternal here on episode 82. I'm your co-host Braxton Taylor alongside Andrew the Nuisance Bullet.
Bro, you really butchered that intro.
No, I didn't push that. I'm sitting here like waiting for my cue and all of a sudden...
Listen. Okay, my keyboard died right before we...
Well, you didn't have to hook your headphones around your mic.
Well, you didn't offer to hold them for me,
You could have
so...
put it in your seat. Anyway.
My goodness.
Well, here we are back after... Hey, quiet. Enough of this. No, here we are back after... I don't even know how long it's been. Probably at least a week. Yeah.
It's been longer than that.
Maybe.
It's been 2 weeks.
Yeah, it has been 2 weeks. It has been 2 weeks, yeah. So here we are.
Or wait,
Whoa. Strip peaked really loud. Right
maybe
there.
it's been more than 2 weeks.
I'm pretty sure it's been 2 weeks. Because I can look, actually,
This is interesting content.
July 9th was our last podcast, so I think it's been 2 weeks. I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe
Well,
it's
it's
more.
the end of July, so
I don't know.
it's been, yeah, this will be 3 weeks.
Whatever. So here we are.
Here we are.
And we're having a good old time.
Welcome
here.
back, everybody.
No, stop.
Welcome back, everybody, to Jedi
We're
Eternal.
peaking so
We
bad
are,
right
dude.
now.
I don't understand why it's doing that. Why are we
Anyway,
both?
I'm not nearly as loud as you are. You're so loud. I can hear you like buzzing when you talk.
Why does this happen to
I
me?
don't know. So anyway,
All right, keep talking. I'm gonna go change something over there. Keep talking.
trying. But anyway, so we're glad to be back. I know it's been a bit of an absence. A lot of stuff's been going on. Andrew's been pretty busy with camp and preparations for camp and a bunch of stuff like that. So we do apologize for our semi-regularly scheduled absence that's been happening the past year or so. So we apologize about that, but we're glad to be back. With that said, this is Jedi Eternal, of course. That is our main podcast where we talk about anything and everything Star Wars. We go over news, we go over rumors, we go over fun discussion topics, we go over main topics, all this good stuff, right? So that's what we're going to get into, but we do want to shout out very quickly our Patreon. And our Patreon, we do have a single tier subscription, and that is $5 a month. And that subscription will give you access to any and everything we post, whether that be our Let's Play episodes, whether that be our podcast episodes, whatever it may be. You're going to get instant access to it rather than it being strictly on
Is this any better?
Saturdays. Yeah, it sounds like it.
No, now I'm too quiet.
I don't know. You was getting pretty loud earlier, though.
Testing. Am I good?
I think. I don't know. So it
I don't know.
sounds
We'll find
all
out.
right in my ears, but whatever. So like I said, you get instant access to that. So, but this is
Wowzers.
Jedi Eternal. But you're also going to get exclusive access to our podcast episode or podcast and other stuff, which is kind of a secondary podcast we do exclusive to Patreon, and that's kind of just like a fun extra thing that we do for our patrons. You know, basically, if you're subscribing to us on Patreon, most likely it's because you like us. So you probably want to hear more than just Star Wars from us. So we talk about a plethora of things, right? We talk about video games. We talk about movies and do movie reviews. We talk about just stuff that's going on in our life. In fact, this episode, we take suggestions from our patrons about what they want us to talk about. We're actually recording right after this, our July episode. We're going to be talking about some fun stuff about all the Marvel releases and stuff like that. One of our subscribers also suggested that we talk about our personal interests, which is kind of interesting, right? And so JB, Josh and Berkshaw actually wanted to know more about us, more about what we're interested in outside of Star Wars. So that's something we're going to talk about too, and just go over our likes and hobbies and things of that nature. So
Yeah, it'd be a really great time to join the Patreon because, again, if you didn't know, Comic-Con happened, the big Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con, and they announced the whole like slate of MCU shows for the next good while.
Yeah, several years.
And we're talking like phase 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah.
And we're gonna go through all those. So now would be a great time to join the Patreon to hear that episode, because I know a lot of you that listen to us, you're also MCU fans. So now would be a perfect time to jump on for only $5.
Plus, you obviously will have access to all of our previous episodes, right? And we have an actual whole episode dedicated, or the main topic at least, dedicated to Marvel and the MCU.
Yeah.
We have one for what was it? Jurassic Park and Jurassic World. We talk about, like, there's one episode where we just talk about some of our goofy adventures and stuff when we went to Niagara Falls earlier this year. We have an episode about Lord of the Rings. We have one about Skyrim and Elder Scrolls. I mean, we just have a bunch of stuff. And if you are interested in that,
it's fun.
We're harping a lot on this, but we just have a lot of fun over there.
Yeah.
So if you would like to join us for only $5 a month, you get access to that podcast. You get instant access to all of our Jedi Eternal stuff, and you get to become a patron, a producer if you become a patron. And that allows you access to all that stuff and helps us to decide things.
It gives you more control over, essentially, over the show.
Yeah.
Because you guys do have a say on what happens within that, and we turn our ear towards you, and
absolutely.
And you guys can kind of almost direct us into what you want to hear.
Yeah.
I do want to thank our patron producers real quick, and that is again, this is another perk, is if you join our Patreon as a producer, then you do get a shout out on our Jedi Eternal episodes.
Yeah.
So we're going to go ahead and do that real quick. Of course, number one, our main man, our brother from another mother, JB, Josh and Birkinshaw. We also have my wonderful, beautiful, dashing wife, Tara.
Dashing, that's a one way to describe
That's
your
an
wife.
interesting way to put it, isn't it?
Anyway.
We got Grace and David Gill, the Gillies.
The Gill Bobs.
We got Alex Mason. I just spent a week with this dude, and let me tell you, he's a handful.
He's a handful.
No, we actually had a great time. I really appreciate you, Alex. Thank you for supporting our Patreon. And we got Jay Camdar, the mysterious Jay Camdar, who we have tried to get to talk to us, and I don't know if he's afraid or if he's just like,
I don't like these guys after all.
Or he like accidentally subscribed to us and then forgot. Like, I don't know. But he doesn't actually talk to us. But
Jay, if you're out there, we want to hear from you, man.
We still appreciate it, though. Thank you, Jay. And we got Gina Evans. Genevieve Evans, Jenna Evans, who has never listened to our podcast. We did find that out. So thank you for supporting us for no reason other than to do so, because you have never listened to this. I don't even know why. I could just not say her name and she would never know. But anyways.
Yeah, anyway, that makes it awkward, though. So, but moving on, though, we harped a lot on our Patreon. Like I said, clearly we have some fun over there. We really enjoy it, and very thankful to the people who do support us. But we love for it to grow, and as more people join on, we're going to probably create new tiers and new levels of things that we're going to introduce. But that's, of course, solely dependent on how many people
we have so many ideas for the Patreon, things we want to do, but we have to have the level of participation for us to do those things. So please, if you have any interest at all, just give it a try, and we promise we're going to do our best to make it worth your while.
Yeah, exactly. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and move into our actual content here, why you're here. And that is, of course, we're going to get into the news for this week on Star Wars. So let's go ahead with the very first one. And that is a very sad one that this week. I hate to even hear it, but we're going to go ahead into this and say that Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic remake that was announced last year, or it was either earlier this year or last year, Unfortunately, this has been delayed indefinitely. Like groans and sighs across the room here. It's truly sad. Something we KOTOR has been something that we've talked about a lot. We have several Let's Play episodes from that game. We've had a good time with it. We've loved it since we were younger. So when we heard that there was going to be a remake, so not just a graphical overhaul, right, but an actual remake of the entire game, we were so excited that would be modernized and brought to a new generation. But now it's saying that it's delayed indefinitely. Of course, we do know that the game makers, or the makers of the game, right, they were the ones that were porting over some of the older games to like Switch and some of those things, and we know that they're having some issues, right, that they ported over. I think maybe it was Knights of the Republic 2, and that there was a game-breaking bug where you couldn't even finish the game. So I guess my point is and Drew's going to get more into this, but you know, it was unfortunately maybe a sign of the time type thing where, you know, they just porting over an existing game to another system, they were having some like massively big issues, right? So
and
maybe
we talked then about our concerns, right? Of like, wait, these guys are doing the remake, but they all they did was essentially pour over a game that was already finished and somehow like left in game breaking bugs,
right,
where you couldn't even finish the game.
And like where if you were even possibly going to finish it, you had to like put in cheats to somehow skip the level.
Skip it.
So long story short, it unfortunately did come into to manifestation here, right? And that same company is announcing that they're delaying indefinitely. So Drew, what do we have on that? Anything more?
So this, first of all, this breaks my heart. This really just hit me hard when I saw it. I was like, oh, come on. Because anyone that listens to us knows I have a deep love for Knights of the Old Republic. I love that game. I love it so much. I really do. It's one of the things I love most about Star Wars.
Oh yeah.
One of the reasons I love Star Wars the way I do is because of that game. And so to see that it was going to do a remake had me very excited, and I liked the direction that I was hearing it was going to take. It was going to create some more modern action, but continue in the same role-playing story that we all know and love. And I thought that sounded pretty great, right? So this is coming from Bloomberg, so very good source. Bloomberg is.
Yeah.
It's a source you can trust, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And so here's what they have to say.
Why couldn't it have been "We Got This Covered" or something?
Right? Yeah, exactly. Or comic book. What's that called?
Comicbooknews.com or .net or something. Yeah. I don't even know. Yeah.
Yeah, I wish it was that. Anyways. Coming from Bloomberg, the development team on the project has experienced a shakeup as two directors on the title, art director Jason Miner and design director Brad Prince, were fired earlier this month. Throughout July, two studio heads at Aspyr have told employees that development on the title will be postponed as the company looks to sign new contracts and development opportunities. While the plan was originally to release the game as early as the end of 2022, it is now expected that the title will realistically be ready in 2025. The game has been in the pipeline for 3 years thus far, and its first presentable demo, which Aspyr staff had been confident in, arrived in late June. A week after this demo was shown to potential developers, Aspyr suddenly and unexpectedly fired the aforementioned directors. The company felt that the overall progress on the demo had been somewhat unsatisfactory for the amount of time the game had been brewing, and that a disproportionate amount of development time was spent on the demo instead of the full game, something that was deemed unsustainable to its current developmental trajectory. So here's the deal. It sounds like they didn't really have their stuff together.
Right, clearly.
They focused a bunch of time on the demo,
right?
But clearly the game itself was not in the state that the demo was. And this is a game that's already been in development, again, for 3 years.
Yeah.
So clearly it was shown. The staff felt good about it, but then clearly the higher-ups were like, well, this isn't good enough for 3 years of development.
Yeah, and I was going to say, they're clearly, it just sounds like they were riding the hype of what they were doing more than actually producing something, you know?
Right. And so now they're saying, you know, we're looking for new people and this is going to release 2025. I'm just going to be honest. I don't know. I don't know that that's going to be the case.
Yeah, realistically speaking, it's hard to say.
So here we are, 2022. We're looking at another 3 years of development on a game that's already been in development for 3 years.
Right. I mean, so basically, the question is, what on earth were they even doing for 3 years? You know what I'm saying? And we know not very much, right? And what they did do was working on a demo rather than the game for 3 years. But that's just wild to me. It's just crazy to think.
I'll be honest. I hope we get some kind of leaked video footage of this demo because I do want to see what the demo was. But yeah. So my hopes for this game to ever be released are very low.
Which again, like you said, breaks our hearts because
now. Is there? I think if this game does come out, there's a chance it may not even be Aspire that does it. This may end up being taken to a whole different developer. Again, it's a very wanted thing, right? So, and it was a deal with PlayStation. You know, it was going to be a PlayStation 5 exclusive. One of the main reasons I was trying to get a PlayStation 5, which is funny, I actually finally managed to get my hands on one.
Wow.
And then this news happened, so wow, right? Hey, God of War Ragnarok still coming out. I'm glad I have PS5 for that. Anyways, that's not Star Wars.
Stop bragging, all right? Stop bragging.
So, this is something that Sony is clearly going to still want, an exclusive for their console. So I wonder if it's something that they can make a deal with somebody else to do this. I mean, hey, I'm almost afraid to say this, but, you know, what if it went back to BioWare?
Yeah, true.
I mean, sure. BioWare's not been the greatest lately. They've made a lot of questionable decisions in their games of late.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, supposedly it's going to be a return to form with their next video game, which is going to be the new Dragon Age. We'll have to wait and see. But if a game like Dragon Age comes out and it does well, maybe, you know, bringing it back, the remake back into BioWare's hands might be a good choice. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there because at this point, I just don't know that Aspire. I mean, this all hangs now on the balance of Aspire finding the right team to be able to finish the job with this and finish it well. Here's the thing. You cannot have a Knights of the Old Republic remake flop. You cannot release.
Oh, yeah.
You cannot release this game and it not be every ounce as good as the first game and better. It has to not only have the magic of the first game, but it has to even be better. That's asking a lot.
Take all those foundational points that was so good, uphold them, but also then shore up the walls, so to speak, of graphical content, fluidity of gameplay, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah, and so, you know, there's a lot of expectation there. You cannot have this game release and it not be good. You can't have this game release and it have tons of bugs, tons of game-breaking bugs. You cannot have that happen.
No.
Aspire will be dead, and unfortunately, Knights of the Republic will have a very, very bad mark on its name, and of course, none of us want that. So,
naturally.
So, it's one of those situations. I know I've been talking about this for a while now, but like it's just something I'm passionate about. But it's one of those situations that if we cannot get the right team to do this, then let's not do it.
Yeah,
much as I want it.
Yeah.
As much as I love it. And that's why I do give some props to the higher ups of Aspire, because I think they feel the same way. Clearly. The upper management of Aspire, who saw what happened here, they said, you guys are done. And I appreciate that, because had they been like, well, you know, it's not that great, but keep on going.
But we want the money, so yeah.
And you know, they could have.
Yeah.
And so
true.
I do give them props for that.
Yeah.
That they are clearly taking this game serious. But hopefully we can get it in the right hands and see an amazing project come to life eventually.
Yeah, I totally agree.
But let's jump into our next story here. As we said earlier, San Diego Comic-Con was a couple weeks ago at this point, or actually I think last week.
Yeah.
And during that time we got another Lucasfilm publishing panel, and so of course with that we got some new information on the High Republic. So we're just kind of go through what was talked about there. We got our first cover for Star Wars High Republic, The Battle of Jedha by George Mann, which is, I believe, an audio... Yeah, it's an audio original. kind of bummed that George Mann's doing an audio original, to be honest, because George Mann is a terrific author, and so I'm kind of bummed that it's going to be audio. However, I believe this is the one that they're releasing the script for it like a month after the audiobook.
Oh, okay.
Which usually it's much longer. So I'm glad that there's only like a month wait. So that being said, I'm not going to buy the audiobook. I'll wait for the script. But anyways, the Battle of Jeddah, it looks really cool. I don't know these characters. However, are you looking at the cover?
Yes, I am.
However, I will say the one on the left does give me some Stellan Gaios / Elzar Mann vibes.
Yeah, for sure.
And interestingly, his lightsaber is kind of a similar design as Stellan's. So
right, has the blue blade with the metal cross guard.
No, I don't think. Yeah. I mean, I'm not implying they're like related or anything. But,
right.
But I just noticed that clearly he's going to probably be kind of a similar character.
Sure.
And then the one on the right, of course. I don't have any idea who that is.
Mutated Kermit the Frog or something.
Mutated Kermit the Frog. Anyways, of course, the most intriguing thing about this is, of course, being set on Jeddah, which we do know about from Rogue One. So that'll be interesting to see kind of what that story has for us.
Yeah, for sure.
Moving on, we got a look at the Dark Horse Limited series titled Star Wars: The High Republic, The Nameless Terror. And this, of course, again, is going to have a lot of new characters, and it's also written by George Mann. So, again, I'm so excited George Mann's joining the High Republic because, again, like if you guys have not read stuff from George Mann in Star Wars, get on it. Like, seriously.
Get on it.
Jump on it. Jump on it. Jump. Bum, bum, bum. Okay, anyways. I'm
revealing our
place
early
today.
2000s roots here,
but he is just fantastic. He's written some really great stuff. I really enjoy his stuff. And then we got some looks at Star Wars: The High Republic Adventures. You guys know I love those. This being the Dark... I was being sarcastic. But this being Dark Horse now versus IDW, I think there is potential here for this to maybe actually get a little darker than what we originally were getting with IDW. I'll say I immediately noticed there is definitely some graphic... Like, the comic looks a little different than what they went... A little less cartoonish, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Even though I know it's all... I think you guys know what I mean. So we'll see how that turns out. But anyways, you guys can look all those up if you'd like. We might be able to throw them up in a story, maybe, Braxton, if you wanted to do that. I mean, I'll leave that up to you, but you could maybe throw them all up in all the different images on a story or something, so people can look back on it. Then we have the main Star Wars: High Republic. This is our first look at the cover for the second issue, and Kevin Scott's going to be the one for that again. But again, we have some different Jedi here. I again don't believe these are any Jedi that we know of. So clearly we're getting lots of new cast within this because if you didn't know, I believe this is set 150 years prior to the first phase of the High Republic.
Yeah.
So,
or is it 150 years or is it 250 years? Because I want to say it was like similar to the amount of time that it was from Phantom Menace. I could be wrong on that, but
I was really thinking it was 150, but
I don't know. I could be completely wrong.
Well, now we have to find out. So, because we have to clear this up for the fans.
Yeah.
Clear this up for the fans. I could just be throwing out numbers. I don't know.
Who knows? I don't know. Oh, you're right. No, you're right.
I'm right.
Phase 2 of the High Republic will be set 150 years in the past.
I love it when I'm right.
It doesn't happen that often, so you really got to savor it, you know?
And then we got some other things here. One of them being in August, we're getting, so very soon, August 16th actually, we're getting The Princess and the Scoundrel, which is going to be a novel from Beth Revis, which is it's going to be the story of Leia and Han getting married. So it's set very soon after Return of the Jedi, and it's going to be about them having their wedding on the Halcyon, of course, because
why not?
Because everything has to be.
You got to promote that $6,000 2-day trip.
Please buy a ticket.
We
to
don't
be on the Halcyon.
understand why this is not working out. Anyway,
please buy our thousands of dollars drink, please. Okay. Then they showed us Star Wars Hyperspace Stories, which is another Dark Horse comic. This is an all-ages one. This looks like it may be more of like the adventures that we know and love so dearly. So you can check those out. We got another look at Tales from the Rancor Pit, which is going to kind of continue some of those short story format that we were getting from some of the other dark. What were they called? The Darth Vader's Castle. That comic series.
Oh,
there's a couple of them.
Yeah, I don't remember off my head.
It's kind of following in that format where you're going to get some more short stories set from different times.
Yeah.
And so that's pretty much it that we got from it, but just some little tidbits here and there of some new information as we get closer and closer to the High Republic returning. Again, the High Republic begins, or Phase 2 begins October, like beginning of October, and that's going to get here quicker than you might expect. So
that is the truth.
And we're getting ever closer to something else very special, Braxton. Do you know what that is?
What?
It's the new Lego movie. The new Lego
August 3rd,
movie.
baby. August 3rd.
What's it called? Summer
Vacation, I think.
Summer Vacation?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be good stuff.
Yeah.
So guys, grab a bucket of popcorn. Grab your family and friends.
Grab a bucket of Legos, honestly.
Yeah, and sit there and watch this wonderful film. It's
going to be so good.
It's like, you want to know what happened to Rey after...
Next continuation of the sequel trilogy right here. Canon only. Hashtag canon. Anyway.
Oh, boy. Yeah, boy.
But it'll be fun nonetheless.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Whatever.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah, whatever.
But after that, Andor.
That is true. Andor is coming up pretty soon as well.
Like what? Like exactly like a month from now?
Just about. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Anyway, so let's go ahead and move on to our final news piece for this week. And so what's interesting, folks, as Drew had already mentioned, SDCC, or San Diego Comic-Con, happened about last week or so. And so obviously, as we're going to talk about on, again, another shameless plug, right? As we're going to talk about on our and other stuff Patreon episode this week, Marvel had released a bunch of different stuff, just a ton of different stuff. And so they had put a trademark on a bunch of new names and a bunch of new titles and stuff like that. But what's interesting is that a lot of different people who are in the Star Wars fandom kind of, hey, got a little curious, and they wanted to see if Lucasfilm had, put out any trademarks around that same time. And so a Redditor on our Star Wars leaks was able to find on July 26th that Lucasfilm did, in fact, file 3 different trademarks, and those are called trademark under the Great Circle, the Galactic Circle, and the Circle of Resistance. So, as of yet, obviously, so that is the news piece, right? That's what it is. Now, this is kind of where it's a little bit rumory, like basically we don't know why. What is that? We don't know what it's tied to.
Right.
So obviously we technically don't really even know for a fact that it was tied to Star Wars. Now, again, Galactic Circle, Circle of Resistance, like these names are, it's very probable that it's tied to Star Wars. So and Drew you might have some more on this, but you guys kind of take it as you will. You might have some speculations, but we do know for a fact, you can look it up, that they did file the trademark for the Great Circle, the Galactic Circle, and the Circle of Resistance. So Drew, anything else on that?
Yeah, so the only other thing really to make mention with this is that all 3 trademarks were classified under the 9 and 41 labels. And looking back at Lucasfilm's previous trademarks, for comparison, all of the previous series and films developed by Lucasfilm in the Disney era had the trademarks 9 and 41 labels on those trademarks.
Interesting.
So this does seem to suggest that we're looking at potentially some kind of movie or series with these names.
Yeah.
Now, something else to throw out there. This isn't necessarily an uncommon thing to do. They people do this a lot with Star Wars, Marvel. All these, they throw out all kinds of things because they want to make sure they have access to them if they want to use them.
Right. Any big corporation like that, even if they have the slightest inkling that they might do something, there's like, get the copyright, get the trademark. You know?
Exactly. And so, just because these were listed does not confirm anything.
All right.
And that's why, yes, the news portion of this is that, yes, they were listed. But then we're diving in more into rumor territory by talking about what that even means or if it means anything. And for example, there is like trademarks like Skywalker Academy that has been listed. That's nothing's ever came about. And maybe it still will, but again, that's just kind of a reference there. But but what also brings some makes you wonder more about if there is anything legit here is that, like you were saying with the San Diego Comic-Con, and they announced all of these. Well, around the same time, all of those got listed in trademarks, and they all ended up really happening.
Yeah, that is true.
And so around the same time as the Star Wars ones were listed. So here's the thing. If this does mean anything, we're probably going to find out at the Disney thing coming up, Disney D23.
Yeah, D23.
Where it's already confirmed there will be a Star Wars. Star Wars will be talked about.
Yeah, naturally.
That much is known. Now let's just talk about these names real quick.
Yeah.
So we have the Great Circle, the Galactic Circle, and Circle of Resistance.
Yeah.
So the first thing that out of all of these, the first thing that really stands out to me is Circle of Resistance.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is that implies sequel trilogy era.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily have to, I guess, but to me that implies we're talking something sequel trilogy era.
Yeah.
And we've heard, little rumors here and there that we're going to continue in the sequel trilogy era. There's already they're kind of setting the path to eventually have things that are set after Rise of Skywalker. And so, maybe this is something to do with it. Now, the question is, are these three different things, or are these all names for one thing and they're just not sure what they want to name it?
Yeah, I mean, that's completely possible.
I think I lean towards that. And the reason is because I can't imagine they're going to release three different things and that all has circle in it.
Right.
Unless it's like a trilogy and they want it to have...
it could be like a part series,
or a part, like...
I seen one person comment that kind of, what you said, and I was thinking this too, but anyway, that the Circle of Resistance is very kind of synonymous with the sequel trilogy, right? They said that the Galactic Circle, it kind of is reminiscent of like the original trilogy, like the Galactic Empire. Yeah. And then the Great Circle,
like the Great Republic.
Great Republic could be the prequel trilogy. So it could be a project where they're doing some sort of piece for each of the trilogies, and maybe it's something small or not small and necessarily. Basically, what I'm trying to say is maybe it's not like a full movie for each of these things, but maybe it's like a 3-part series of like a short series of, I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I like that. I could definitely see it being something along those lines for sure. Yeah, that's interesting. But again, it's if you guys have any thoughts on it, let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts on what you might think this is. But for now, it's all speculation. Yeah. We don't have any kind of anything set in stone.
For sure.
And again, D23, make sure you keep it here, Jedi Eternal, because we will update as we hear things from D23. Yeah. And who knows? Maybe we'll find out there.
Yeah, we very well might. So, we're going to go ahead and move on to our good old rumor mail. Just meander down to the rumor mail. And we have 3 of them this week. Mail. Come on down to the rumor mail, where you get your rumors at the mill. Anyway,
that was
It was
that
really creative.
original.
I know. Anyways, so let's go down to the room reel. And very first one for this week is that Star Wars Jedi Survivor is potentially arriving early 2023. So we know after we saw Jedi Fallen Order at, I believe it was 2019 Star Wars Celebration, we did see it later that year. Now it seemed a little more developed. There seemed to be a little more content there, but we did end up actually seeing, and that was one of our kind of not controversies, but one of our debates. We're like, are we even going to see anything about this game at Star Wars Celebration? And so we did see some stuff
in a weird way.
Weird way. So again, it wasn't as developed, it wasn't as forward as it was in 2019 for Fallen Order. So they
didn't even actually have a panel for it. It was like a surprise, like on the live stage.
Here it is.
They're like, oh, and we have a trailer for your first look at. And I'm like, I was like in another panel, and I'm like, wait, what?
yeah. So it would make sense that because they showed something, it's not too far off, but because it wasn't as as developed as we saw in 2019 for Fallen Order, that it's not going to be this year. So an early 2023 release very well could be possible. Now, knowing how these things work, I could easily see it getting pushed back to like summer 2023 or maybe even fall of 2023. But the rumor as it is right now is that it is arriving early. So early, what does that mean? A couple months in, at the end of the first quarter, whatever. I don't know. So it is interesting to hear and to see about that, because honestly, I think a lot of people have been anticipating the sequel to Jedi Fallen Order, or whatever iteration that this game is going to end up being. A lot of people have been anticipating that. A lot of people do want another awesome open world, good graphic, Star Wars video game. So it's a long time coming, and so if it does come in 2023 early, I'll definitely take it. So, Drew, do you have anything that you want to say to that, or?
Yeah, so it says the reason that this is potentially arriving early 2023 is that if you can now add Jedi Survivor to your wish list on the PlayStation Store, and when you do that, it just says the game will release in 2023. However, if you kind of research into it a little more, the Sony database has the game listed as early February to late March, somewhere in that window.
Yeah.
And so that is why they're now saying it could potentially be arriving early 2023. I really don't know that I believe that's going to be the case.
Right, yeah.
Number one being we've not seen this game other than a cinematic trailer. We've not actually seen the game itself. And as we know, developers love to show quite a few gameplay trailers and demos, things like that, before they ever actually release the game.
Yep.
So the fact that all we've seen is a cinematic trailer shows me they're not ready to show the game. And so for us to get this by early 2023, I have my doubts. Now, do I expect this to release by holiday 2023? Yeah, they want to have this out for that holiday window.
Naturally.
And I believe the last one released kind of in the holiday window.
Yeah, I believe
in the fall.
Yeah.
And again, that's a very popular time to release really big video games, because there are a lot of parents and stuff out there, or significant others, stuff that are trying to look for something to buy for Christmas. And so it's an easy way. When there's a brand new game out there, it's an easy buy.
Yeah, it came out November of 2019.
Yeah, exactly.
So
So I would be really shocked if this came out in early 2023.
That's what I was saying too. Yeah.
Now, will I be disappointed? Absolutely not. I mean, I would be thrilled, but I would have to have a little more. I'd have to have a little more proof of this, other than just that Sony has it listed in their database, because Sony doesn't truly have the answers to that. Honestly, a lot of it is probably speculation on their part as well. They have to, in their database, they have to put it for sometime in 2023. So they probably have a window, and they just throw it in there. But
yeah,
again,
naturally.
I really don't expect to see this until holiday.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, it'll be
I just
interesting.
want you to know
see.
our music's about to play, so don't
Yeah, I
freak
know.
out.
I saw it. I thought I was going to tell you too, but I didn't want to say anything because I didn't be awkward on the podcast.
Yeah, well, it's okay.
Whatever.
We would have talked about it anyways. We always do. So.
Oh my god. Oh, so anyway, yeah. Do you want to go ahead and want the next one?
Yeah, sorry, I'm about to like choke. So we, so this next thing here that we have in our rumors is that Star Wars' new Disney Plus show reportedly is more expensive than The Mandalorian, and what that is Skeleton Crew. Skeleton Crew is set to cost more than The Mandalorian cost. So according to the Hollywood Reporter, Skeleton Crew is pushing $136 million to produce. While that number is already high, it's made all the more interesting when it's compared to the figures for the first season of The Mandalorian. 2019 reports from Business Insider put The Mandalorian Season 1's cost at $100 million, while Washington Post gave the figure of $15 million an episode, bringing the total to $120 million. While inflation and increased across-the-board expenses could account for some of the price difference, the fact remains that in a comparison of first-season budget, Skeleton Crew has the higher figure.
So like half the budget is them trying to just get Jude Law to be in the show. I think.
Yeah,
that was it.
Right.
That's your
that
discrepancy.
was it. Yep.
Right there.
Right there. So, what do you think about this? What do you think about Skeleton Crew?
Honestly, I again we talked about it a little bit, but I really don't even know what this is supposed to exactly be. And I know they haven't released a ton of information on it yet. Obviously, that's kind of the whole point. But for that to be more expensive than Mandalorian, I mean, you would think that it would be pretty crazy, right? I think it's going to have a lot of content, a lot of big bombastic scenes. Yeah, I don't know. I mean...
So, Skeleton Crew, at least currently from what we know, is really the second Disney Plus, Star Wars Disney Plus series that is like a complete original, right? It's like The Mandalorian. When The Mandalorian came out, there was no connection to anything. Right. It was brand new. Right. There's, Kenobi, of course, has all kinds of connections. We have Boba Fett, of course, right. And we have Andor, which is connected to Rogue One. So right. Everything that we've gotten so far, and Ahsoka, it all have connections to something other than The Mandalorian, which proved itself. And then now we have the Skeleton Crew.
Yeah.
What I think is interesting about the Skeleton Crew is that we know the timeline that it's set in is actually going to be concurrent with the Mandoverse.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
My expectations are this will be part of the Mandoverse.
Sure.
We just don't know how that is yet, right? We don't know how it's connected to that, but
yeah.
Why else would it be set in the same time period? Yeah.
So and from my understanding, the only, I think the only piece of information that we have about the content of the show is that Star Wars Skeleton Crew, the series will center around a group of children lost in space and be set in the Ahsoka/Mandalorian time frame. Mm-hmm. John Watts revealed at the event that the story of their journey is trying to find their way home, Watts said, but he also conveyed one important aspect of the series. It stars for kids, but it is not a kids show.
Right.
So I guess my point is that that's really all we know about it.
Yeah, I think they're from everything I have read and heard about, and what like you read there, I think their hope is to very much have this be Star Wars Stranger Things.
Yeah,
you know
honestly,
what I mean?
Riding that wave.
Yeah. I think they are. I think they're hoping to get this really great group of kids in the Star Wars universe. They're going to be out on their own. But I think they're kind of trying to grab the magic of that group like they have in Stranger Things. And I think that's what they're hoping for here.
So like instead of like D&D, they're playing like Space Sabacc, and they're like...
Well, and again, what I mean more than anything is just like that group aspect of kids.
Right.
And I think that... If I remember right, when they talked about it at Celebration, they did mention kind of like an 80s inspiration even of like the
really subtle there,
kind of
huh?
like the E.T.
Yeah.
Kind of those kind of movies, right?
Yeah,
that call back to those kind of movies. And whoops, I just dropped my phone, sorry. And so I think that again, there's more to this than what we know right now, because clearly being set during the Mandoverse means it's going to have connections to that, and it's going to grow within what their plan is with the Mandoverse. So we'll just have to wait and see exactly how that plays into it.
Yeah, for sure.
But the fact that the more money is going into this is interesting, but also not necessarily surprising. As I think that they're going to want this to be a hit.
Sure.
Right off the bat, they want this to. This is going to have to be really good, because again, it's going to have to prove itself.
Yeah.
Because it has nothing else to build off of, like
especially spending this kind of money.
Right. Yeah.
So, moving on to our final rumor for this week, and again, kind of plays into a similar vein of what we were just talking about, and that is this rumor is that Star Wars teases an Ahsoka versus Vader live action battle. So, as we know, of course, one of the big shows that is coming up in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, however long time frame is, I can't even remember, is that we're getting an Ahsoka live action series. Rosario Dawson played her in The Mandalorian, and she's going to, of course, reprise that character in the actual Ahsoka series. So, of course, we see the Ahsoka versus Vader battle in Rebels, and I can't remember exactly what season, 2 or 3, whatever. And it's a very iconic moment where Ahsoka realizes that Vader is actually Anakin. So, but the rumor is that this battle is actually going to occur once more, but in a live action setting. So, we already hear many rumors, and I don't even know if it was confirmed or is a rumor that. No, it was confirmed, right? That Hayden Christensen is going to reprise Vader in Ahsoka, correct?
Correct. So,
I mean, it's very possible, right, that we could see an Ahsoka versus Vader live action battle, right, in this show.
So I think my guess for this is that within Ahsoka, we're going to get a flashback.
Yeah, okay.
And it's going to be the battle we've already seen in Rebels recreated in live action.
I could see that. Yeah.
I don't even know that it'll be the whole battle, but we just might see some like flashes of the battle between her and Darth Vader.
When we got Kenobi, right, we already saw not as nearly as much as we hoped for, but some flashbacks, right, to the Clone Wars era and stuff.
Yeah, and I think I don't necessarily think it's a good idea to have Ahsoka and Darth Vader fight again.
Sure.
For one reason, the last time that Darth Vader and Ahsoka saw each other, Darth Vader
put a wampum on her.
Yeah, and then of course, it was very much hinted at that he killed her.
Right, and that's why the World Between Worlds.
Then the World Between Worlds happened, and he brought her through the portal deal.
Yeah.
And so I think that I would assume that if we do get this, it's going to be part of that like flashback sequence.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily know that it'll be like a new fight. But what I do want to mention though is when you look at the Ahsoka title,
mm-hmm.
do you get like super World Between World vibes?
I don't know. Let me look at it. Yes, Ahsoka. Oh, I think actually I remember seeing it. Let me look it up though.
Yeah, look it up.
I'm fairly certain I remember what it looks like. Yeah, it has like the little circle with the dots and like the
like it's like super hardcore World Between Worlds.
Yeah, well, in fact, if you zoom in, even has some like the old like lettering, like runic lettering that you see in there, right?
So, if they're delving into more of World Between Worlds, which I think is very dangerous, but we've talked about that.
Yeah.
But if they do, they're clearly going to have to explain that story. The reason why she even knows what it is, the reason why she's alive, is because of the World Between Worlds, because of Ezra. And we already know there's a good chance Ezra's coming, that Thrawn's involved, all this stuff.
Right.
So people have to understand what happened there. And you're going to have a very, very large majority of viewers of this show who's never watched Rebels.
Right.
and has no intentions of ever watching Rebels
And
that
you're
are
gonna
going to need this explained to them.
Right, but you're also going to play kind of a dangerous game, though, of like kind of over confusing people who are more casual, and you're like, what in the world is this about? You know?
Oh, it's going to be interesting if they're but again, the title for Ahsoka definitely does appear like they're maybe going to hint at some more World Between Worlds stuff here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are people out there that believe. Again, I'm saying there are people. I am not one of them. But there are people out there that believe Ahsoka is going to be the way that the show is going to be how the sequel trilogy is erased. Because they're finally going to Ahsoka's going to reuse the World Between Worlds.
People are trying
to purge the rumor for so long has been they're going to purge the sequel trilogy, and so this is how it's going to be how it's done. Essentially, you branch the timeline, right? You got two branches.
Yeah.
And then you can do whatever you want in either branch.
Yeah, and they're both theoretically canon because they're branches, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, I am a weirdo. Like I could probably get into that, honestly. Like I could get into that, but I don't. But for most, I think it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's silly.
It is a goofy thing because like again, I'm down. I mean, listen, if they wanted to retcon the sequel trilogy, I don't care. But it's just like people who are like getting to these theories.
Into Star Trek territory.
It's just like it's so goofy because they're trying so hard.
You're getting into Star Trek territory.
Yeah.
Star Trek did a similar thing.
Well, there's 16,000 timelines.
They essentially made a whole new timeline. There's like I know there's like a couple of different ones, but then for the new J.J. Abrams, they made like another one.
Yeah.
And that existed with the other timelines. So if Star Wars starts to do that, things are going to get real complicated real fast.
Yep.
We're going to start dealing with like multiverse stuff like Marvel's dealing with.
Yeah.
But anyway, only time will tell if any of that comes to be. But I am personally excited for the Ahsoka series, and I'm really excited to see what they do with it. But hopefully they don't go too crazy with World Between Worlds. But we're going to go ahead and that's all of our rumors. We're going to jump into our releases that we have coming up. So our releases that we have, hold on a second. Let me pull up my calendar here to make sure I tell you guys the correct things. So we have Halcyon Legacy on August 3rd. This is that comic book series. We have Han Solo and Chewbacca issue number 5 on August 10th, as well as Bounty Hunters issue number 26, also on August 10th, and Hyperspace Stories issue number 1, which I think that is the very first Dark Horse comic that we are receiving. So that'll be on August 10th as well. So you can check that out. And that's all of our releases. Well, except for our very special Lego show that is coming just right around the corner. So we know that you guys are all very excited to watch that. So make sure you watch that next week.
Yep. We'll be asking for show notes and comments. And
yeah. We want your commentary.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's move on here to our community discussion panel here. So basically, if you're not familiar with this, we go into our community discussion segment where we make a post on Facebook asking you guys one question, and then we'll take your guys' answers and we're going to discuss it live on air and then go over some of our thoughts and our answers as well. So one of the fun things that we have been doing recently for a community discussion is to go over some classic debates within Star Wars and some classic like banters of like why this, why that, you know, did Han shoot first or blah 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 blah. So this week's classic debate is, what are your thoughts on midichlorians? Why weren't they mentioned in any other trilogy? And although they are canon because of the prequel trilogy, it is not widely accepted in the fandom. What are your thoughts? So we're going to go ahead and get into your folks' answers. We got 3 answers this week from Brandon Dukes, Corey Allen Wise, and JB. So, Brandon Dukes, just simple and eloquent, just simply says, they're a figment of our imagination. Clearly, Brandon, we know where you stand on it.
Yeah.
Which, again, I'm not saying that I disagree with you. Corey Allen Wise says, they are real. I believe that the sole reason Anakin Skywalker is so powerful, Yoda as well, that's what sets them apart from every other Jedi in the entire series. Yeah, I mean, and that's what they really tried to portray, right, in the prequel trilogy, is that because Anakin's midichlorian count or whatever is so high, that's what made him so powerful. Yes, I mean, you're definitely right. So JB has a long answer, but let's get into it here. So he says, I believe they, quote-unquote, had to make some story of the difference between Force users and non-Force users. That being said, I think it is a very believable thing, and that the mention of midichlorians are a valid way to show this. It would be cool, to me at least, if the reasons they are not mentioned in other films is because, just like the Jedi, no one really believes in them. Like, imagine if suddenly we have a mutation in our evolution, but some of us don't, ... would they believe it? I suppose COVID is a massive example of this, LOL. I guess I'm sort of making excuse for them not mentioning it in other films, but yeah, I'm going with midichlorians are real, but in the canon universe, just like any religion or whatever, they don't get mentioned because it's been forgotten or lost in time, if you will. So, JB, you make a lot of really good points, and I think that is a pretty, not easy, right, but a pretty prevalent workaround where you're right. I mean, in fact, we see in the sequel trilogy where people don't even believe in the Force, that that's even a real thing, that we see where Finn and Rey are like, especially Finn, right, is like, oh, that's just all hokey junk, and you know, Han Solo has to walk in and be like, no, I've seen it myself. Well, I mean, even then, right, we can go back to the original trilogy, and Han doesn't believe in it, Mm-hmm. So yeah, clearly, if they don't even believe in the Force, then clearly they don't look into the minute details of how to measure the Force, which is to be the midichlorian count. So here's the way, and this is a really meta take here. So forgive me, I'm not going to dive too deeply into the actual lore here, and I'm just going to look at it in the sense of movie and story production. One thing that you'll see harped on a lot, is that whenever George Lucas made the prequel trilogy, right, one of the biggest things that he said in multiple different interviews is that he wanted to make this prequel trilogy basically something completely different from the original trilogy. He wanted something new. He wanted something fresh. I mean, is it going to follow the story? Yeah, it's still going to be a prequel, right? It's going to set up to what we saw in the original trilogy. But at the end of the day, how he makes it, the production quality, using CGI versus real life, props, even and how he approaches the story, he wanted it to be something completely new, something completely fresh. And you will see that in some of the interviews. He says that multiple times. So my point is that as he's bringing in these new ideas, as he's bringing in these new characters and these new ways to express the story, I think that he wanted to do something really different in terms of the Force. And of course, have it, instead of being this mysterious thing, right? He wanted to take this really mysterious force that connected everything in the galaxy, and no one really knew what it was, and he wanted to break it down into something quantifiable that could be measured, and as we saw in midichlorians. And I think, unfortunately to me, I think that was just really unnecessary. Sure, you can take a lot of new directions and make the prequel trilogy something completely new and fresh, but I think with the Force is something so sacred, not even just in the Star Wars universe, but I'm saying, like, even to the fans, that, like, it's supposed to be mysterious. It's supposed to be this omnipresent thing that connects and binds all living things, right? We don't really need something to quantifiably break down this omniscient force that surrounds everything. I don't think we need that. And I think my point is, the reason that it was brought in was because George Lucas was just trying so hard to be different and trying so hard to be fresh and new, that he tried to bring a new take on something that was already established, and it kind of it took away from what we had. So that's a long-winded thing here, but Drew, what do you think?
So tell me exactly how the question was.
So he
again.
wasn't listening that whole time, guys.
No, I was, but I just want to know what.
So the question was, what are your thoughts on midichlorians? Why weren't they mentioned in any other trilogy? And although they are canon because of the prequel trilogy, it is not widely accepted in fandom. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think that people have issues with it because it does it tries to scientifically explain something that was supposed to be a mystery, right? Mm-hmm. And so basically I agree with exactly what you're saying. I personally, I don't have too much of a problem with midichlorians. I mean, yeah, it's a little silly. But I don't necessarily have too much of an issue with them. I think that, the prequels did it. There was a lot of hate for it when Qui-Gon, says, "Oh, well, Anakin's levels are, the highest he's ever seen."
Right.
Or does he say that, or does he say it matches like Yoda's, or I don't remember.
Something along those lines.
I don't remember exactly what is said, but and so I think that a lot of people didn't like that, and so then it's just like you don't hear about it again, right? Until the Mandoverse. And and they've brought it back. If you remember, the scientist talks about the M count.
Yes, I do remember that. I kind of forgot about that.
They don't talk about. They don't call it the midichlorians.
Yeah,
but that's what he's talking about when he's referring to them testing Grogu, and they talk about the M count.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
And so, like it or not, I think it's here to stay, and I think that do I think it's going to be heavily involved in the future of Star Wars? No, I don't. But I do think that there'll be small references here and there. I think it's the midichlorians are here to stay because it's been mentioned once, so it is canon, so it will be involved in stories, and especially as we are continuing to kind of unravel the purpose of why they want Grogu, which I think we all have a pretty good idea what that is.
Yeah, right.
But I think there could be more talk about midichlorians because they are looking for, essentially they are looking for a specific M count, right? For what they want to do. So I think there is potentially more room for the midichlorian talk. So, I think we're going to have to kind of embrace it. Embrace that, there is a scientific explanation for midichlorians, and we kind of just have to accept that because it was made canon in episode 1, and so it's gonna be there. And so if it makes sense to use it, then they might use it. And again, I'm not super against midichlorians, but I do understand enjoying the mystery and not needing the explanation. I do get that. But anyways, yeah, that's my thoughts.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it. We have a lot of great people out there who interact with our stuff. A lot of reoccurring names here. We love to always see from JB and Brandon Dukes and Corey Allen Wise, and usually Alex Mason chips in every once in a while and stuff like that. So long story short, we are very, very, very thankful for each and every person who interacts with stuff. And we, of course, know that there are more people out there listening, and we would love for you to chip in too. And again, you may not have this big eloquent answer, and that's fine. That's totally fine.
That's fine.
We
just want answers.
We
don't need it to be
you could just say
impressive answer ever.
I can't even think of the word now because I'm thinking of midichlorian. Mitochondria as the powerhouse of the cell, right? I mean, that's all you really need to know.
You could say me likey M count.
Me likey Star Wars.
And me likey Star Wars. And we would read it off. No, and we would say thank you.
But for real though, I mean, we just like to know that you're out there and you're listening and that you like what you hear. Of course,
nothing brings us more pain and sorrow than if we post something and we don't get any response.
Yeah, I literally...
Nothing brings us more pain.
I literally writhe in the floor crying, you know.
Sometimes we just hold each other and cry for like an hour.
Whisper, singing sweet nothings into each other's ear to calm each other down, but really just spins an emotional turmoil even further. Okay, we're getting way too far. But for real though, we're super thankful for everybody, and we do want to hear from you guys. Yes. Honestly, if you're out there and you've kind of not really said anything in the past, you just kind of listened and been on the sidelines, we want to hear from you.
Yeah, and you know, I said a while back, if you get this far in this episode, I said say, you know, and I had threw out some random number. I don't remember what it was. And I'll tell you, you know, so Alex Mason sent it to me, and I appreciated that.
Yes.
But then I actually had somebody else do it just recently. Yeah, that was Kelby. He said he had gotten behind, but he was catching up, and so he sent that to me, and I really appreciated him doing that. But I do want to kind of throw a little pitch out for him.
Yeah, I was about to say that same thing. Yeah.
Oh yeah. He actually has started a podcast.
Yeah.
And again, this is our good friend Kelby, who has been a great supporter of Jedi Eternal.
Yeah.
Throughout our a couple of years of existence now.
Yeah.
And so he's been doing what they're calling the Theme Park Patriarchs.
Yes.
And this is a podcast that he is doing with his father. And they're just discussing all things theme parks. And I believe they got like 3 episodes up right now. The first episode, they're talking about Silver Dollar City, Dollywood. And I think their latest one, they're talking about Kings Island, Disney, Hollywood Studios. So do us a favor, if you guys are Jedi Eternal listeners, please go check out the Theme Park Patriarchs. Give it a like, give them a review. Just help us out. If you don't do it for them, do it for us. We would love for you guys to just kind of give them some support. They're brand new. We want to see them grow and have a good audience. Yeah. So if nothing else, go follow them, rate, review their podcast. That does help.
Yeah.
And that would be not only a great thing for them, but we would appreciate you guys doing that too. So
yeah, for sure. So we're going to go ahead and get into our main topic, and I'm going to let Drew obviously lead into this himself because he's the one that's read this. So go ahead, Drew.
So as most of you know, Shadow of the Sith came out not too long ago. We've talked about it on the podcast a couple different times, and so I finished it, and I really liked this novel.
Yeah.
This is set after Return of the Jedi, before The Force Awakens, closer to The Force Awakens than it is Return of the Jedi. We're seeing a Luke Skywalker that is currently at his academy, training students. He's got a young Ben Solo there training.
So this would be after Battlefront 2's campaign then?
Correct.
Okay.
It actually makes reference to some of the events of the Battlefront 2 campaign.
Very cool. Very cool.
It has a lot of callbacks. Actually, it even had... So I'm just going to kind of do spoilers on this.
Yeah.
The non-spoiler review, I really liked it. You should go read it. Now I'm going to do the spoiler. I don't like doing non-spoiler stuff. I feel like it's just like, you know, you just kind of talk in circles.
Yeah.
So if you guys don't want anything spoiled, now would be the time to say goodbye. Otherwise,
should I walk out
stick around and well, you just have to live with it.
Whatever.
So, but it actually has a character from the Battlefront 2 campaign. It's what is his name? Oh man, now I'm not gonna remember.
Which one?
The Duros that's in it. What is his name? Can you remember his name?
Dude, you don't. I'm the worst person to ask.
Oh, it's gonna really bother me. Anyways, he's in it, which was neat. It was cool. I liked that. Anyways, it's not that important, but yeah. So we have Luke Skywalker here in full, Jedi mode. We have Lando Calrissian, who plays a key role in this as well. And then what was the most surprising is that we get Rey's parents, right?
Yeah.
They play a really big role in this, as well as Rey, a young Rey.
Yeah.
And Ochi of Bastoon.
Yeah.
And
she's on the cover, right?
He on the cover, but yes.
Wait, what'd you say?
He.
I know, that's what I said.
Oh, I thought you said she.
No. I said he is on the cover, right?
Ochi of Bastoon is on the back of the book. So the character on the front of the book is a new character. Again, I'm going to be kind of giving a spoiler here, but her name is Kaiza, and she is actually from Aftermath, the Aftermath series.
Oh, that's cool.
So,
yeah.
If you've ever read those, you might recognize her. So, do you have any questions you want to ask me?
Yeah, I mean, I have my standard questions.
Let's do your standard questions, and then I can jump into more spoiler stuff after that too, if we want.
So like I said, I have kind of a standard set of questions I always ask Drew.
And you can of course ask me ones that maybe come to your mind.
Yeah,
as well
I probably
after that,
will.
But.
So yeah, I mean, you kind of already stated it. So, but my first question is always, what are your thoughts on the book, and just as a whole?
So the first thing that I think about this, and I think I've told you this, I've told my wife this. If you enjoy Star Wars, if you are a Star Wars fan, if you have watched the sequel trilogy and have a lot of questions, have a lot of things that you're puzzled by because of the sequel trilogy, you should absolutely read this book. It's easy to read.
Yeah.
It's not a hard read. It's written in a way that I think is easy enough if you're not a typical reader. So I know some Star Wars books can be very daunting in the way they're written.
Yeah.
This is not one of those. I think this is written fairly straightforward, but it is very good. It keeps your attention, but also it fills in some very interesting gaps that we had in the lore that just really kind of makes it all fit together better than it did before. Again, it's not like anything too huge as far as like revelations go,
right?
But it just makes everything kind of fit that much better when you go back to watch. The Force Awakens.
A lot of the media that's coming out for Star Wars in the past couple of years, right? That's really the main goal. Unless they're creating something new, which rarely happens, unless now we're seeing some stuff with High Republic, of course, and stuff. But it seems like 90% of the content that we're seeing is really to fill in the gaps better and to help bridge things. Just like with Rogue One, when we're seeing the transition between Episode 3 and 4, we're like, what's the point of Rogue One? Because and this is not true, but for me, that was one of the very first times I really started noticing that, like, hey, the Star Wars content that's coming out is really to help better bridge the things that we already have.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, Claudia Gray, she says when she goes to write a Star Wars book, that's the first thing that she asks is, what am I looking to answer? Like, what question am I answering within my book for Star Wars? And I think that, you're right. A lot of them are geared towards that. However, I think that a lot of them do that, but in a very, very small way. Yeah. So it's like very little things. I think this one has bigger impact. It's answering bigger questions. It's much on a much bigger level than most of the Star Wars novels we've received. Now I'll say the Aftermath series has become more and more important as time has went on, but what's interesting about that is Aftermath has become more and more important because other things have fed into it as time has went on. And this is actually an example of that. Because of Aftermath, they kind of brought stuff from that into this, which then makes Aftermath more important to read. And that's actually happened in a lot of different ways throughout the past couple of years.
And that's what's so funny. And this is kind of like sort of off topic, but it's not. It's like, I was trying to introduce someone to Star Wars, about a month or so ago, and I think of Star Wars as this like amazingly beautiful, intricate story that has so many tiers and levels and accessibility to so many different varied, But what I realized is honestly, for someone who has like not an express interest or someone who like blah blah blah, like honestly, Star Wars can be probably a little difficult to get into sometimes because there's so much stuff, and like honestly, I almost feel bad for people who are trying to get in for the first time because you're like, to really appreciate some things, you really have to know the backstory of X, Y, and Z to get you there, right?
No, I know exactly what you mean. I can't fathom trying to just now get into Star Wars because there's so much to it.
Yeah.
And to appreciate it on the level that I do, you had to have consumed everything.
Yeah.
And because there's so many little things in Star Wars that I get to appreciate because I consume everything Star Wars.
Well, it's just like all these callbacks on like the Mandalorian or whatever. And I just remember like Mandalorian season 2 or in Boba Fett, like there would be so many times like a new character would come, like Cad Bane. That's a perfect example.
Yeah.
Like I mean, I'm not the like. Cad Bane's like whatever to me. Like I think he's a cool character. I wasn't expressly like, oh, he's so awesome. But at the end of the day, we've only seen him in Clone Wars. We watched Book of Boba Fett. We saw Cad Bane, and I remember that first episode that we saw him, and he's walking in from the desert into Freetown, and I remember like just jumping off my couch, like, dude, that's Cad Bane. And it was just because like all of these layers of Star Wars that I got interested into or enveloped into, and I remember my dad, who has no clue what Clone Wars is about, definitely has no clue what Cad Bane is. He's like, is this supposed to be somebody, son? I figure this is probably somebody I'm supposed to know. And I'm like, well, yes and no. And I told him how he would have known. He's like, oh, I wouldn't have no idea who that is,
Right.
But it's true. It's like, one thing I will say though is not to dissuade anybody who's not super into Star Wars that maybe is for whatever reason listening to this podcast, do it, because the cool thing is if you're a good story writer, which most of the Star Wars movie and TV series writers are, is that you can still enjoy it by itself, even if you have no context. So seeing Cad Bane come in and just like absolutely wipe people out, if you have no clue who Cad Bane is, that's just a really cool scene that you can still enjoy. But for people who know who that is and who knows about Clone Wars, it's just that extra layer of So I guess I say all that to say, like, I never want to dissuade anybody to get into Star Wars, but what I will say is that, like, if you want to get to the level of depth that like me and Drew or a lot of people do have an appreciation for Star Wars, it's going to take a lot of media consumption to get up to. That's for sure.
Right.
So anyway, that was a really long-winded thing that was sort of off topic there, but clearly, like I said, you have good thoughts on the book because it does tie into a lot of good things. So let me get into my second question here, and that is we do have a lot of different characters in this book, many who we do know, such as Luke, Lando, etc. And ones who I guess technically we know but don't know, like Ochi of Bestoon, and many who we are getting introduced to for the first time, sort of. Ochi of Bestoon, Rey's parents, and I can't remember the other person that you said. But so I guess my point is this. How has this book, if at all, changed your viewpoint on any of the characters that were shown? So, especially the ones that we know. Has your viewpoint changed about Luke or about Lando at all? And for the characters who we are being introduced for the first time, but we've heard about before, how has that perception changed as well for you?
So, I wouldn't necessarily say it's changed my thoughts on very many of these characters. We have a Luke Skywalker that's definitely like in his prime. He's in a place where he's kind of done roaming the galaxy because Luke, for many years after Return of the Jedi, goes around looking for artifacts and knowledge.
Right.
That's like what he does for a long time. Where we're at in this story, which is about at least I think let's see, Rey's like 6 years old in it, so we're about 13 years before The Force Awakens, I believe. So he's kind of just now settling into, okay, I have this temple, I'm teaching these kids, I'm not like flying all over the galaxy looking for secrets and knowledge anymore.
Right.
And so that's kind of where we're at with Luke. However, of course, he does get pulled into another thing here. And so Luke's about what I would expect. It's actually the Luke that I like.
Like you kind of hope for,
like that you hope for.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed that. Lando's in kind of a rough spot because he's looking for his daughter, who was stolen, as we know from Rise of Skywalker. Unfortunately, he's basically spends a long time trying to find his daughter.
Right.
And so if anything, I just feel bad for Lando, and I think maybe it makes me feel even a little more bad for Lando within this after reading this book. But what is interesting about that is because of the loss of his daughter, it really does motivate him to help Rey and her parents within this story. And it's interesting because while they do help Rey and her parents, they never really have like actual interactions. Like Luke never actually like talks to them or anything within the story. He's always kept at a distance,
right?
For canon reasons, right? Because he can't really like truly like know who they are. But I will say that Rey's parents were very interesting to learn more about. And I would say that if anything, that's the two people that really I now have learned more from and appreciate more would be Rey's parents, because we didn't know much at all, right? Other than just seeing them in Rise of Skywalker. And here you really do get to learn quite a bit. You even get a couple flashbacks to a young what's his name? Dathan, a young Dathan, who is Rey's father.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Or Dathan.
Like,
I'm not sure how you say it. Dathan. And so you actually see him on Exegol as a child.
Really? That's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, he's on Exegol, and they actually he sees the Sith cultists going around, and they're chanting. They like walk around and chant Sith names, so they're like chanting Revan, and they're
so they really do say Revan?
Yeah.
Oh,
they say
wow. Nice.
they chant Revan's name, and they just go around chanting different names.
And all that.
Binks. So
anyway.
So that's really cool. Again, this also ties into some of the one of the Dark Legends stories from George Mann that specifically takes place on Exegol.
Yeah, so those that was the list of like short stories, right? Yeah. And so like there's like this like weird hunchback thing that was okay.
It's that one.
Yeah,
it's that story. Yeah, that's the story that this book does tie into. But kind of. But anyways, you go ahead and keep asking your questions. I'm going to keep like getting off subject. So
basically, I have one more. And basically, we kind of already discussed this, right? But how has the book, if at all, changed your view of Star Wars and/or the Star Wars universe? Has it supplemented? Has it added to, etc.?
Yeah, it's very much a supplement to the sequel trilogy. Again, you're seeing more relationship between Luke and Ben. You're seeing Rey and her parents. You're seeing the beginnings of, or kind of the background of Palpatine and his drive to come back.
Yeah.
It essentially talks about how Palpatine is still just trying to find a body that can hold him.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing that they never really talk about in the book, and I thought was interesting. They never talk about it at all is Snoke. There's nothing to do with Snoke in this.
Yeah, that is interesting. But this could be clone creation of him. I don't know.
I mean, maybe, but I mean, I don't know.
But then again,
you would think
there's
probably,
Ben, right? Which, I mean, you think that he would already be established to some degree.
Maybe, but maybe not. Ben maybe hadn't met him yet.
Well, right. I'm just saying that you think he would exist at least at that point. But I don't know. Who knows? Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of weird, but it definitely implies that. So what's interesting is that Dathan, is a boy on Exegol, and it implies, that, I mean, he's been around for a while.
Yeah.
And so I find that very interesting. So how early did this clone process start? How early was he trying to clone?
Yeah.
To clone bodies, and so. So to give you some just kind of more ideas about the plot is that, we've got Luke Skywalker, of course, we got Rey and her parents, Dathan and Miramir, and they're being tracked by pirates. They're looking to capture them, and of course, Dathan escaped Exegol a long time ago, but now they want him, but they're wanting Rey.
Right.
And as they continue to elude capture, the Sith Eternal enlist Ochi of Bestoon to hunt them down. And so that's how he's kind of thrown into the mix here. And he's actually been looking for a way to return to Exegol, because he's been there before. He's been there before with Darth Vader, I believe, and Palpatine, because he used to help them. And so he's actually been there, and he wants to get back to there because he knows that it's a place of great power for the Sith. And then, of course, we have Lando, who's been out searching in the galaxy for his daughter, and Ochi he's trying to gather a crew. Lando overhears kidnapping kids. And so that's how Lando kind of gets involved in this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, Luke has actually been dealing with these disturbing visions and this sense of darkness on the rise. And in a moment that's really, really cool, Luke has interaction with Anakin, a Force ghost Anakin.
Really?
Yes.
That's very interesting.
But not necessarily in the way you would expect. Anakin's like trying to communicate with him, but he's having a hard time. So it's very interesting. He's like trying to talk to him, but it's like almost like flickering out. Like it's, and it never truly like it never really goes back into that. Yeah. And so I found that really interesting, and I want to do more research on it.
I could see two possibilities to that off the top of my head. First of all, this is one question, and they may have explained this, and maybe I just don't know, but, how did Anakin Vader figure out how to get part of the living force, and then because he died, and then he came back, and he's sitting there right next to Yoda and Obi-Wan and blah, blah, blah. So how do you figure that out? So my point with that is maybe he had an incomplete knowledge of it, and therefore the first theory is that is he's trying to communicate, he can't quite do it because he's not fully incorporated, or B, it very well just could easily be that Palpatine is clouding this or Snoke, right? Either or, same or and whatever, trying to cloud that communication of the light side so that Luke couldn't get help or whatever. Who knows? I mean, I feel like this could be two possibilities.
Yeah, and I think that as far as the question of Darth Vader, I think maybe he, he was a Sith, but he's still, they were still seeking ways for eternal life and such. So
true.
He very well may have studied, Force ghosts and how that works.
Yeah.
But maybe, of course, couldn't practice it because he was on the dark side, and the Sith Lords could not do that. They have other ways, which we'll actually be getting into here in a second. But they couldn't do the light side Force ghost that we see so often. Yeah. And I think that maybe he did have the knowledge of how to do it, but he couldn't because he was dark side. Right. But then when he turned back, maybe that allowed him to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's clearly something going on there where he was kind of struggling to remain there. But it was also Luke was also being like force projected onto Exegol a couple of different times as well, which is interesting.
Yeah.
So anyways, there's a lot of cool stuff there, and I'm not going to go into all of it. You just should read it. But his visions are becoming more frequent. And actually even more dangerous because they're actually like the Eternals are like trying to almost like attack him on like through his force. It's weird.
Interesting.
But anyways, he ends up actually meeting up with Lando again, and Lando, basically the story focuses on Luke and Lando trying to stop Ochi and the rest of his people from getting to Rey and her parents. all along the way, they go to a couple different places, discover some different things. But one of the things they run into is Kaiza, who really isn't Kaiza anymore. Not really. Like, it's her body and she's kind of there, but really she's actually been taken over by an old Sith Lord that lives inside of a mask. So very similar to the mask that we've seen before in the Lando comic and in the Darth Vader comic, but not the same Sith Lord, different Sith Lord.
Interesting.
And so this Sith Lord, and they actually make reference to the other one in this too, but this Sith Lord has kind of found a way to continue to live and possess people through this mask.
Yeah.
And so she's wearing this mask, and it has the Sith Lord, and the Sith Lord wants to get to Exegol. And so it's really interesting stuff. And I mean, there's so many different things I could go into, but I don't want to just throw it all out here. I think there's a lot that you guys can find for yourself within this book, and plus it would take too much time. But I will say that Dathan and Miramir are really great. I love having that. I do think it was kind of silly how they'd be like, and Miramir is really good at flying, and it's like throwing in all those little things they're like, oh, that's why Rey's good at all this stuff. And it's like, it was like maybe that was a little too much,
a little on the nose.
A little on the nose.
You're like,
yeah.
Okay, all right.
But anyway, I just really liked it. I think it has a lot of really interesting things for Star Wars lovers, especially for anyone that's fans of the sequels, but also fans of Sith in general. There's a lot of Sith stuff here, and actually, this Kaiser woman's using the lightsaber of the Sith Lord from the Dark Legends book. That's kind of one of the connections there. She's actually cool. Using that lightsaber, and there's just a lot of stuff like that that's really cool. A lot of throwbacks, and actually one of the very first things that's said in the book, which I don't actually have it here, but is a callback to the book written by it's the Revenge of the Sith novelization. What's it called? It's not called Revenge of the Sith.
I don't know. Honestly, off the top of my head, but I know what you're talking about though.
Anyways, it's a very beloved book, very well written. But anyways, this book kind of calls back to it and has a very similar. Let's see if I can find it here. It's really cool. I don't know if I can find it. But anyways, just a lot of really great stuff in this book. So I highly encourage you all to go and get it, read it. I really liked it, and I think Braxton, you should read it as well.
Oh, I certainly plan on it. I haven't been reading as much recently as I should, but I certainly want to. That's for sure.
Yeah, and so and a couple other things just to throw out there. Why was Rey left on Jakku? You'll know when you read this.
Oh, okay.
You'll know why she was left on Jakku. What is hidden behind that mask that you see on the cover? That's the Sith Lord. You'll learn a lot of cool things there. How did Ochi, have the dagger, that Rey has that she uses to find out where the Wayseeker is? You'll learn about that too. And this book does talk a lot about the Wayseeker.
Yeah.
So again, just kind of filling in some stuff that we just didn't know or understand inside of Rise of Skywalker specifically, but also the whole sequel trilogy. And I think there's a lot of stuff within this they can continue to build off of within future stories that continue to lead up into the sequel trilogy. So
yeah,
really enjoyed it.
Very cool. Yeah, I certainly do want to read it, and I do plan on it. But after your riveting review here, for real though, it sounds pretty awesome. So of course, I'm going to look into it, and if anybody else wants to, Oh, okay. Sorry. We're having a little off-air communication here. With that being said, though, folks, we're having a good time here. We had a great time. We're thankful that you guys are here, that you're listening, and you're with us. We're going to go ahead and conclude our podcast today. And we do ask that you would reach out to us, let us know your thoughts, if there's anything that you would like us to add or take away, or if there's anything that you think would be cool for us to expand on, whatever, just let us know. Or if you just want to say hi and say, hey, hello, fellow Star Wars lovers, fellow nerds, just let us know, and we'll absolutely love to talk to you. Thank you so much for the support for the podcast. We do humbly ask that you would like and follow us on Facebook and Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube, and all these different places. We have a lot of fun on there, especially on Facebook and Instagram. We do news and polls and memes mostly, and sometimes discussions and different stuff like that. But if you'd also be so kind, follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Of course, that is the main places where our podcasts do go and where we post them. So if you wouldn't mind, follow us on there and leave us a review, even if it's not a good one. We want to know how we could get better. And if you do like it, please let us know as well. But we do thank you so much for listening to us. We're going to try our best next week to get to another episode of the Let's Play. And then 2 weeks from that, we're going to get to episode 83 of Jedi Eternal. But last but not least, may the Force be with you. And we thank you so much for joining the Jedi Eternal.